Jason Arday was anointed as the youngest black professor in British history at an Oxbridge University, so Cambridge University. This would have been remarkable enough in and of itself. Arday also claimed that he had been non-verbal until the age of 11 because of his severe autism.
This man is unbelievable.
And then a man called Nathan Cofnas writes a blog which lays out quite clearly how Arday has plagiarized his PhD thesis.
Would the same thing have happened to a white person?
Oh no, I mean, it's very hard to get into Cambridge at any level as a white person. I mean, this man's, okay, just go back a bit. His first degree from Roehampton was in physical education. And somehow he's done this series of trampoline vaults over the institutions. And effectively, you know, it's a form of laundering.
Now, I don't have any skill, but what I do have is an indomitable will.
They're willing to throw away the legitimacy of the entire legacy, the whole system of Cambridge, because this man is black. Is race infected their brain to that extent? They're gonna get what they deserve. You realize that the West and the Enlightenment and all the traditions that we built, bled for, died for, you realize that your generation is killing them.
I think that should give us courage, exposure to other people's perspectives.
Moving us in a good direction. Jason Arday is the youngest black professor in Cambridge's history. He has been accused of plagiarism. The evidence is absolutely unequivocal and overwhelming, yet his defenders are legion. Tell me about that.
Well, there's a lot to say, Peter, and I think you're going to like this one because it kind of goes back to what you guys did with James Lindsay and Helen in, was it 2017? The so-called squared hoax is playing in the same ballpark. So Jason Arday was anointed as the youngest black professor in British history at an Oxbridge University, so Cambridge University, in 2023. This was a major media sensation at the time. You know, got a lot of coverage, and it got coverage from the BBC and others, basically saying this is an extraordinary thing. Jason Arday, in the course of this coverage, said that he had run 600 miles, I believe was the figure quoted
Multiple
at the time.
marathons every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So an ultra marathon every day for 6 days was effectively his.
Even the camera guys are laughing at that. That's so crazy. Yeah.
That was one of his claims. In subsequent interviews, he also claimed that he was an academy football player. So he played in basically the sort of the junior big leagues in Britain for, like, you know, sort of Man U's sort of under 14 team or whatever. And that he had a stint in sort of pro-am snooker too, which is quite a big thing in the UK.
And snooker is what, just for our American audience?
Snooker is, it's pool with strange rules. It's like a lot of red balls and a pink ball. And
that's good enough.
Yeah. So this would have been remarkable enough in and of itself. Arday also claimed that he had been non-verbal until the age of 11 because of his severe autism.
This man is unbelievable. This man is incredible.
The fabulous in all of us. And then that he had learned to read at the age of 18.
Incredible.
That I think he had one GCSE or no GCSEs, and so that's the sort of short history of his early life. He then goes to something called the University of Roehampton. Somewhere in between this, he has a tutor, a man of sort of Italian ancestry, who's been sort of, you know, turning up in these clips, saying things like, you know, and I just said to Jason, you know, if you could do this, if you could become the youngest guy with a PhD who was like previously nonverbal autistic, then that would be a great story. And I think the word story is maybe doing more heavy lifting than he realized at the time. I think he was telling on himself in some regard. Anyway, Arday gets the job, and then a man called Nathan Cofnas writes a blog about 10 days ago, which lays out quite clearly how Arday has plagiarized his PhD thesis, which he got from the University of Roehampton. And you know, the world has moved on. The world of plagiarism checking is very sophisticated now. He punches it into the machine. The machine pulls out very long paragraphs, all of which had been lifted from a 2009 PhD thesis.
And to be clear, this is not just you saying this. We can find this online. We can find...
Yes, so Nathan Cofnas has a blog under his own name, Cofnas, and it should be pinned to the top there. I'm sure it's been read hundreds of thousands of times by now. And Cofnas, as an academic in his own right, is very linear. He's very methodical in how he lays out these instances. And indeed, we'll probably get onto this, he is being very linear because prior to this, the Times Higher Education supplement, which is a big sort of prestigious quasi-journal in the UK that speaks to the academe, the sort of the university profession, had an article ready to go on the Arday affair. And that had been spiked, I think, sort of about 18 months ago, because Arday had set the lawyers on them. This famous law firm in the UK called Carter Ruck, who are the kings of libel law. They are raging pit bulls who, because UK libel law is structured slightly differently to American libel law, there is this whole pit pool of stories in the UK that never quite see day's light normally, because what happens is someone has to give right of reply to the subject of that story. If it is deemed to be potentially libelous, that person then spends £5,000 on a letter from Carter Ruck, and the problem goes away, because you could lose tens of thousands.
Okay, so now correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he found innocent by Cambridge of plagiarism?
Hey, did you know only half of you watching are subscribed? If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button to keep the videos coming. Thanks.
I don't think he was found innocent through any formal means.
Okay, because... Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. But Cambridge University, so far, and it's a very interesting point in the story, is simply doubling down. There has been no statement on this matter from Cambridge University, and indeed, various colleagues of his in the faculty were signing an open letter earlier in the week to the effect that Jason Arday is being abused and harassed
Absolutely.
in the right-wing press.
Yeah, that's plagiarismophobic. They're being phobic of plagiarists.
Yeah. And one extraordinary name that was at the top of that list, who I think might have sent the email itself, was a guy called Simon Baron-Cohen, who you may know. He's
related to Sasha.
He's the cousin of Sasha. That's one of his claims to fame. The other one is that he's held to be the world's leading expert on autism. And he is in a Cambridge faculty of world-class names, he is a name amongst names. So it's very interesting that a man with that sort of
stature,
emeritus stature is doubling down on this.
So I think often in these conversations, we make assumptions that the people in the audience are just going to say, oh, well, okay, that's why plagiarism is bad. But like, draw me through that. Like, why is fraud bad? Why is taking another's work and claiming it as your own bad? Why are fabricating your credentials? Why is that bad? I know those seem like asinine questions, but they're obviously not asinine questions for a number of reasons, namely that Cambridge faculty, they don't seem to think it's bad. The Cambridge itself doesn't think it's bad. And if you would, we should also talk about the people defending him, like the Good Law Project.
Yeah, we can get on to that. I mean, why is plagiarism bad?
Yeah.
Well,
who cares if anybody fabricates
their
credentials?
It is the sort of the high crime of academia, and it's been described as being something between theft and a chef pissing in the soup. You know, it is a crime of extremely bad manners, and it is a crime of displacement of someone else's property. at the same time, because the whole way academia is constructed is on this rigid system of footnotes. The idea at an epistemic level is that knowledge builds on knowledge and builds on knowledge. And in order to do that, we must know that the knowledge at the base of that pyramid is true, and everything subsequent to it builds truly upon it.
Yeah, but that doesn't take into account race.
It doesn't take into account race, no.
So that system is a white colonialist oppressor system, and why should marginalized people like black people have to play by those rules? I mean, clearly Claudine Gay, the list goes on and on. Harvard, elite, and it's not just your island, it's elite schools in the US. So why should black people have to play by those rules? Why can't they fabricate their credentials, lie, cheat, and steal? It is a form of academic reparations, is it not, for the denial of blacks into the academy for centuries.
It certainly is. And this is, you might say, Jason Arday's indigenous way of knowing.
Yes.
Is that,
he
knows things that are false and purloined. And indeed, most of Jason Arday's work at Cambridge, when you dig past the accusations of plagiarism, is to do with autoethnography. Autoethnography, rape amongst dogs in parks, you may recognize as a piece of autoethnography from your own canon, is the telling of tales which are simply whimsical stories involving oneself and the deduction of totally n=1 scenarios and conclusions from that.
So Cambridge wanted so badly, so desperately, as our society does, to exalt and put, so in the United States context would be African Americans, blacks, for lack of a better word. They want so desperately, even though they have people like that, like John McWhorter, Glenn Lowry, I would argue Coleman Hughes, but he doesn't have a doctorate, and others, and not just those on the right, or politically homeless. But Cambridge wanted that so badly, they would be willing, or they're still willing, to let someone fabricate their credentials, be completely corrupt, steal others' intellectual property. All of those things are subordinate to the fact that they want a black man on the faculty. Yeah. What does that tell you about the institution of Cambridge?
I mean, one thing I'd say is that there's an interview out there with Arday's supervisor, his boss at Cambridge, from the time when all this came to light. It's a BBC interview, and his boss is sort of sat across the table from him, and it's so wonderful and inspiring that you're here. And I've been talking to many of my black colleagues lately, and some of the things they've been telling me have been very hard to hear. And there is this sense that she is beaming, she's lit from within to be opposite this miraculous being.
I mean, all those ultra marathons, that alone, ultra marathon, I mean, that alone is extraordinary.
That is pretty extraordinary, yeah. And that she is, she's touching his cloth. She is curing her scrofula by the wan light of Jason Arday, this sort of strange, gormless, grinning figure with these rather fixed eyes.
It's lovely.
That portend trouble.
So what does it tell you about the institution if they let people obtain their credentials through fraud? Let's just bracket the black thing for a second, because I realize that's the trump card here. That's the... Well, actually, let's not bracket that. Let me ask you another question. Would the same thing have happened to a white person?
Oh, no. I mean, it's very hard to get into Cambridge at any level as a white person. I mean, this man's, okay, just go back a bit. His first degree from Roehampton was in physical education. And somehow he's done this series of trampoline vaults over the institutions. And effectively, it's a form of laundering, isn't it? I mean, he's gone from having no qualifications. Somehow he's been jumped into the university system. Somehow from there he's been jumped from physical education into, sort of a sociology. And then he's been jumped into a professorship at Glasgow University. And at every stage of the process, there's been this kind of amplification of who he portends to be.
Because they're desperate for black people. No one will say it. I'll say it. It's just the truth. They're desperate for black academics.
Yeah, they are desperate, yeah, because there aren't many to be had, basically.
Tell me about the Good Law Project and their support of this young man.
Okay, well, I mean, the Good Law Project is just one among many leftist orgs that move within this ecosystem. You might say the blue sky ecosystem. They were founded by a barrister called Jolyon Maugham, who is a sort of quasi-celebrity in the UK for having beaten a fox to death on Boxing Day a few years back for sort of getting into his hen house while dressed in a kimono. It is an image. It has a certain kind of weight to it, but he's just sort of typical of a certain part of the establishment. He has managed to, and it's a debased word in and of itself these days, but grift. I probably just shouldn't use that word, but he has gained money and status from a certain tier of the left-wing ecosystem that will support many losing days in court. And he, as a barrister, goes to court, makes a claim on someone or something's integrity, and then 9 times out of 10 loses, but it's okay because it's crowdfunded, so he gets to
And the woman,
roll it over.
I quote tweeted, the woman said, "There's just no evidence for this," or it's Okay, so before I defend this position of not firing him, it seems to me that the fact that the left is defending him, that they're like, to die on that hill, to die on the hill of somebody who engaged in systemic, long-term corruption, who fabricated their credentials, who lied, who cheated, who stole. That's the hill you want to die on? Like, is it me, or is the left subject to a unique sickness? And that is one manifestation of that. Again, it's this white woman who gets on there saying there's no evidence for this. Okay, so why is this even, is this ideological because he's black, and the fact that he's black is the ultimate trump card, and they can't even see any of this? They're willing to throw away the legitimacy of the entire legacy, the whole system of Cambridge, because this man is black. Is race infected their brain to that extent?
Potentially. I mean, this is a sort of an unbundling we're seeing now of the great crimes of the BLM era, isn't it? I mean, it's like that peaked to certain people, that has rolled back. To others, it's still ongoing. But as you say, there is this sort of real problem now where things that are visibly and manifestly untrue have happened, and now it's not clear who steps back. And people like you or I would, we would say that that they will step down and that this is some sort of triumphal moment. But I think what we found in the past is that it never is. The battle never ends. And the right will crow about this.
And what's the battle?
The battle for sanity, the battle for a return to basic empiricism and, a negative conception of rights rather than a positive conception of rights.
All right, I'm going to push back on everything you said, and I'm going to try to defend him now. Cambridge doesn't have enough black professors. They need more black professors. This man is extraordinarily gifted. Okay, he used duplicative language in his dissertation. But this is a small price to pay to get a black man, the youngest professor ever at Cambridge. What is your response to that?
Balls.
Why?
I mean, my response is just, why do you need black professors? Are they gonna?
Because we need young black people to look up to someone in academia to give them an aspiration.
Okay.
Because right now,
I just think that's nonsense. I just don't think there's, this whole idea that we need role models in every way, shape, and form is just like, it's a sort of a modern conception. You might point to certain modern academics, Amy Cuddy and stereotype threat and things like that, but it just flies against everything that the Enlightenment built. And the moment we start getting into that game of talking about these things in that way, I don't know. Did you or I ever need role models to do anything?
that's because we participate in the dominant culture.
Well, so we do, but
And
someone had to be first.
You said before something about the chef urinating in the soup. Well, I want to extend that, please. So if you have a bunch of restaurants where chefs openly urinate in the soup, Harvard, MIT, Princeton, famous plagiarist who's still there, Cambridge. People can just choose not to drink the soup.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with having plagiarists in people who have, fabricated their credentials? They're professors now. If you don't like it, just don't go to Cambridge. What's the problem with that?
I think that is coming down the pike to some extent. And I think people are always like regrading and reassessing what it means for this person to have a first from Cambridge, what it means for this person to have X number of GCSEs, this qualification. In my last job, I had a couple of interns. One of them had been to Leeds University, and one of them had been to Cambridge. One of them was of a certain hue, one of them was of sort of a vanilla colour. And the one from Leeds was much better than the one who had been from Cambridge, had been to Cambridge. And, I just think this is all around us, had we but eyes to see.
Okay, so I'm going to give you another argument that something is due to black people, a kind of reparations. And we can talk about the legacy of colonialism, the legacy of slavery, but allowing him to keep his position is a kind of reparation. What is your argument against that? And I'm not saying they're making any of these arguments. I'm saying because they would never, ever come on to defend him. They don't like just discourse. They can't. So I'm trying to.
Well, insofar as the sins of the father are ever visited upon the son, which is an argument I obviously detest for obvious reasons, it's clear that Jason Arday got so much from being native to Britain rather than from being native to, I don't know, probably the West Indies. He got education, training, all the rest. And he should be on his knees begging Britain and its horrible white people who he writes about and whose microaggressions he talks about every day for their love and protection, because that is essentially the direction of travel here. He's been invited into a thing, but it is your fault. Part of a thing insofar as he wants to be part of it.
It's your fault. It's the fault of the people who allow this. It's Cambridge's fault. It's white people allow this. It's clearly someone is at fault, and it's clearly them for even now not kicking his ass out onto the street.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the distinction between monetizable harms and unmonetizable harms in a way, aren't you? It's like there is some great corpus of stuff that we've identified that is stuff that can be claimed against, like, for instance, I'm black, or, I have this or that characteristic. And then there's lots of stuff that's ambient to everyone that no one can really make a claim against in the day-to-day weft of life.
So I think it would behoove us at this point to be a little more granular on the definition of plagiarism before my next question. Some people define it as copying more than 4 or 5 words, one time. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of definitions. By the way, after the Claudine Gay scandal, many universities took down their definition of plagiarism and hid dissertations of people because they knew what was coming. They knew. But it's basically copying another's work and claiming it as your own and not attributing it. And it's pretty simple to get around it. It's actually effortless. You put a quotation around the paragraph or the cited work, and then you cite that in the bibliography or references or whatever they're called. So it's not that that's what we do. We build upon giants, if you will. We build upon people who come before us, but we give them attribution, quotation, and when you don't do that, you're stealing their work and claiming it as your own. And so isn't that itself a white concept developed by white people?
It absolutely is, yes.
So then it's automatically suspect.
It is automatically suspect, yeah.
So then why can't he participate? Why does he have to play by those arbitrary constructs, those conventions? Why can't he just opt out?
Because there is no academia outside of that world built by white people. I don't know, China, India, all of these places have taken on this epistemic system that was developed in Europe in the 16th to
by white
19th
people,
centuries.
by white men,
Yeah.
by landowners.
Absolutely, yeah. Wonderful.
By colonizers.
landowners, yeah, who built a lot of railways in Zimbabwe, yeah.
Yeah. So why should anybody else, particularly black people, or indigenous people, why do they have to play by those rules? Why can't they occupy positions of power? And why?
Well, because then we would all just be two bald men fighting over a comb. There would be nothing left to plunder or get involved with at any level. It would just be, might as well just pack up and go home. We could turn Cambridge into a bowling arena.
But it is. It's a joke. Harvard has become a joke. These institutions have become jokes. And the idea that it is more important for them to have a black professor than it is to have legitimacy in their entire institution is completely insane. It is a stain. It is vandalism to their mission.
Yeah.
But again, the people in Cambridge have made that choice. And if you don't like it, just don't send your kid to Cambridge. If you think that's a problem, if someone puts Cambridge on their CV, just don't hire them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but Cambridge is just the top of the pyramid, unfortunately, Peter, like all the way down. I mean, you get to sort of second and third tier universities. This is, if anything, worse. It's not really an elite phenomenon in that regard. It comes down from the culture that we have built, the legislation that goes with it, the sense of where we are as a people, and it can vary dependent on the people. I mean, I think Italians, for example, would have less truck with this. The French have less truck with this. In the Anglosphere, we seem uniquely vulnerable to it.
Do you have anything? I have nothing left to say on this topic. I find the whole thing to be, I was going to say disgraceful, but I'm not going to say that. They're going to get what they deserve, and I'm going to love it. I hope the whole system burns to the ground. I've said that for years. People are like, you don't really mean it, you want to burn it. No, I want to burn it all to the ground, right to the fucking ground.
But it's not going to burn to the ground because
No, it's going to be delegitimized. It's already delegitimized. I mean, I'm going to try to help it along the way. But, that's the thing. You don't even have to do anything. You just,
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. People would say to me, well, give me one example of what, because I ask people this all the time, what would it take to change your mind? What would it take for me to change my mind that the system shouldn't be burned down to the ground? Simplest thing in the world. Fire people who obtain their credentials through fraud. That's it. Would you want a fireman? If you knew that a fireman cheated on his exam, would you want them to be a fireman? Would you want that guy to come to your house if your house was burning?
Well, I mean, this guy has a degree in, I don't know, sort of like theoretical water science, put it that way. It's like he's not really a fireman in a meaningful sense. He makes nothing. He's part of the critical studies faculty there.
Right.
So
And
effectively, like, the best cure for any and all of this is to just delete all of those faculties.
No, I completely agree. There are entire wings of university architecture that are so corrupt, they're utterly irredeemable. And it's better for people to learn nothing or look at a wall for the same amount of time for 4 years than they would be to learn something that takes them away from reality.
Yes, and
We
people
agree.
are poisoned by that. Yeah, people come out dumber than they went in.
Yeah, not only dumber, but with mistaken notions of reality and with a confidence in those that is vastly overinflated.
Yes, well, and a sense that they are part of some nomenclature and that they now go out and they signal to the other people within their social group, social standing, by repeating these tropes that they learned in their higher education.
Okay, we've talked about that. Good. Next topic. So have you seen those video clips of, I mean, it seems like thousands of people streaming across the borders into Spain and the white woman waving to them on the board and telling them to quit. Have you seen the videos of just like thousands of migrants, illegal migrants coming in?
I haven't seen the white woman waving, but I have seen the videos. Yes, hordes, the camp of the saints.
Hordes. And sometimes, who knows how much this is true, whatever, but you hear interviews and people admit they're fleeing murder convictions and all this stuff. We have not vetted these people. Some people are talking about, Italy is talking about kicking them out of the Schengen zone. And let me suggest something to you. Unless you're willing to shoot them, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. And because there's nothing you can do about it, more and more people will come because they know they can come. Already they're occupying people's houses now in Spain. There's nothing you can do about it. And so if you do not shoot the boats, you have to deal with the consequences of unbridled migration, illegal migration of millions of people coming in to your countries. You either shoot the boats or you shut the fuck up.
I mean, this is essentially the plot of The Camp of the Saints, the Jean Raspail novel from the 1970s that posited a mass wave event into Europe. It's a similar context to what we saw in 2015, but this is sort of coming from the Moroccan endpoint rather than the sort of Libyan and Turkish endpoints. I guess the question of what is our duty of compassion and what is our duty of terror in order to maintain borders and civilization is one that's being tested once again and is failing once again.
Yeah.
And there's also this question in the background about migration as weapon. People who are sort of subject experts on this, have begun to talk about this in various contexts. So Gaddafi used to do this in the early 2010s, in the 2000s. He would sort of threaten to open the borders. Ultimately, when he was toppled from his perch, the borders did open because this was a free port at that point. The authorities then were no longer interested in taking bribes from the West to keep the doors closed. Erdogan regularly does this in Turkey and decides that maybe I'll just close the refugee camps from, it was Syria, I suppose now it's Lebanon and various things. And it would appear, prima facie, that the Moroccans have gotten in on this game.
Great, so that leaves the original question.
Yeah.
Nobody in Europe is willing to talk about it. Every single person I talk to is freaked out about it. They won't engage it, so I'm asking you directly. Is it true that if you do not shoot people and shoot boats when you come over, you're going to have the waves of immigration are going to...
It's not true.
Okay, so how do we stop?
It's pretty easy. You jail them.
How do we stop
You jail
immigration?
them, you mass intern them. That's what you do.
Okay,
because we have the rule of law, the rule of
wait a
lawyers.
second. So I could not possibly disagree with you more, and I'm going to tell you why. What do you do right now? Tens of thousands of people are pouring into Spanish coastal towns. Is the Navy sufficient to blockade that and prevent them from coming in? And if they do, what do you do once? How many people logistically would you need to round up all of the illegals? And where would you get them from? Where would you find these people? What are they going to be? The equivalent of the Coast Guard? I mean, are they going to be the Army? Are they going to be the police? Yeah. Where are you going to get these people? You have tens of thousands of people in a Spanish town. How are you going to round them up?
Okay, little point of distinction. It's a Spanish town that is contiguous with Morocco. So it is on the far side of the Gibraltar Strait from mainland Spain. So they've kind of come over a land border. They've also kind of swum across from this, they've swum round the corner, if you will. And so that is a distinction that means that, it's pretty hard to stop in the first instance. But if you're going to round them up, I would suggest landing some paratroopers. I would suggest carving the town up into sort of gatehouse zones and clearing each zone individually. That is the classic tactic of guerrilla warfare.
All right, so let's talk about that. So let's just say, make the math easy, I think it's more than this, but let's just say 10,000 people are pouring in there every week. How many troops would you need to arrest those people? That's the first question. Where would you draw them from, and then where would you store them? We have 10,000 people coming in a week.
Okay, well, I think the first thing you would do is build better defenses at the border.
Okay, how long would that take?
Could be done in weeks. I mean, Hungary did it here 10 years ago in about 6 weeks.
Okay. So, but you're talking, so let's stick to one point of entry. So we do that in weeks. The Spanish don't even want to do that because of their leader. But do you really think it's logistically feasible to round up people? You would need, okay, let's say there are 10,000 people that come in a week. this is not my area of expertise, but I'm assuming you would need a multiplier of troops or guards for that. So you would need at least a 3-to-1 ratio.
Okay, but the
So
point you're missing.
you would need 30,000 people.
But the point you're missing is that if you change the incentive structure, they stop coming. So
If you shoot them, they stop coming.
yeah, but you
But,
don't. Like,
but if you change the incentivization structure, people will still come. You'll just get hardcore criminals to come. People who they're already occupying people's houses. We already know from Jan Vanderbeek and others, we know the statistics, the crime statistics. And we know the French are hiding them.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of massaging of the figures in all sorts of directions.
Okay.
But that's maybe a separate topic.
Okay,
but
so that's 10,000 people in one Spanish coastal town. What about the people who go to France? What about the people who come to England, many of whom come to England from France, your island? What about the people who go to other places? They go to Sicily, they go to the end of the boot of Italy, they come in from Turkey. I just don't understand why nobody's having a conversation. Look, let me put it this way. If you are not willing to have a conversation about shooting people in the boats, that's fine. I have zero problem with that. I don't live there. I couldn't care less. But you have to be honest. You have to be honest. No one's being fucking honest. Here's honesty. More people will come. You're going to have a certain percentage of people. Not all Muslims are Islamists, but all Islamists are Muslims. So you're going to have a percentage of Islamists come. You're going to see increasing crime rates. You're going to see increasing welfare issues. You're going to see increasing taxes on the NIH, the healthcare system. There is no end in sight to this. No end in sight. Isn't it more honest to just admit, okay, we're not willing to kill people. We think it's morally wrong. And the trade-off for that is we're going to lose our civilization slowly. Now, if you said that to me, I'd be like, well, this is a person I can have a conversation with. Dude, you're not going to fucking put in 30,000 troops to catch all the people to repatriate them. That's a total delusion. That you're completely delusional if you believe that.
I don't think you are, but I definitely take the point that it is difficult. And it needs to be a complete swinging of national priorities. Europe is in no way, shape, or form ready for that conversation. I mean, it's classic sort of leftist progressivism where.
Okay, how long is it going to take for them to be ready for the conversation?
Too long, basically.
Okay, great. Now we're being honest with each other. So it's going to take too long. So in the meantime, millions of people who are unvetted, you don't know if these people are child molesters, rapists, murderers. You have no idea. It's criminally insane like Castro did in Cuba and the United States. We have no idea who these people are. So isn't it better to just be honest about it and say, you know what, we don't know who these people are. They could be unsavory or they could not be unsavory. They could be decent people trying to just make a living. We know the overwhelming majority of them are young men, unskilled, and Muslim. We are willing to sacrifice our whole culture and our whole society because we believe that shooting people in boats is wrong. We realize that this is a kind of suicide, but we are going to stick to our principles and we're going to do that. That's someone you can have a conversation with. That's someone who's being honest. Don't bullshit me and tell me, oh, I mean, it's just a lie.
Yeah. And there are maybe a handful of people out there who will say that to your face. They will say the quiet part out loud.
But why aren't they saying that? Why aren't they being honest about the problem?
They don't believe in second-order consequences. They have the increasing delusion that Europe is rich and the developing world is poor. Increasingly, the developing world is richer than it was. And indeed, this is some of what facilitates this kind of migration is, the advent of smartphones and people who happen to have 5,000 euros in their back pocket living in the third world. But like the whole system is not premised around that. Like the whole system is premised around like a rule-based analogy from World War II. It's still stuck in this zone of like the 1951 Refugee Convention, which was designed so that if Jews ever needed to get out of Germany or such in the future, a few hundred could, go to Britain and it would be fine.
Okay, I'm glad you're talking about. So let's talk about that because that's fascinating to me. Here's another thing that people should be honest about. You know what? The people we're letting in, by and large, hate Jews. And the safety of Jews is going to be compromise, to say the least. They're probably going to have to move. But we think that that's a small price to pay because we're not shooting the boats and killing people. So we're willing to, again, sacrifice our Jews. Fuck them. Yeah. We have nothing against Jews. Hopefully they'll say that. We have nothing against Jews, but we're just not willing to do what it takes to protect them. So they need to go back to Israel or find another home, or, I don't know, move to Thailand or something.
Yeah.
Isn't that a more honest way to approach the problem?
Yeah.
We're inviting people in who are overtly hostile to Jews, have pathological genocidal Jew hatred. We're sorry about that. We wish we could wave a wand and no one would come here, but that's just not the case. We're not willing to shoot the boats. So we're going to let them come. We're also going to be honest with our Jews. It's not safe for you anymore.
Yeah.
So you need to leave.
Yeah.
We've made this choice and bye-bye. Isn't that a more honest way to deal with the problem?
Pour moi, il n'y a pas un Israël. A famous quote from Welbeck's Submission, where the narrator is talking to his girlfriend who happens to be Jewish, and France has been sort of gradually and rather politely taken over by Islamists, and she decides she's going to go to Israel, and he reflects, I don't have an Israel. Yeah, that's kind of where we are now. I mean, I think what is happening in Britain, if I could give a specific case in point, is that the sort of media classes and the Labour Party, the sort of governing classes, treat all of this stuff as completely acausal. So there was an incident there was an incident where a Jewish ambulance was set on fire a couple of months ago. There was an incident before that where an Islamist stabbed, I think, 3 Jews at a synagogue in Manchester. And it's sort of hopes and prayers territory, isn't it? Like it's like,
so they think it's acausal. There's no causal connection.
There's no connection to them. Yeah. And Keir Starmer, who was prime minister at the time, he is functionally Jewish. He is married to a Jewish woman and he's raising his kids as Jewish. But as the leader of the Labour Party, he needs to cleave to this progressive ideology that everyone is infinitely moldable, and we all just need to come together and sing Kumbaya, and education is the answer, as it were.
I do not wish harm upon Keir Starmer and his family. To be clear, if his kids were murdered by an Islamist, I would bet with odds that he would say, this is the response, this is the fault of the alt-right, of the far right, because they have not been welcoming enough to these people.
Yes, well, this is it, the refractive society, yeah. And I think Starmer in particular would just lap up any chance to self-abnegate, to sort of, to no greater love hath a man than he lays down himself for his fellows. I think that's his entire psychology, is to just feel pitiable and at the bottom of some hierarchy that others can climb over him.
What a sad, pathetic small man.
Yeah, I mean,
he's literally killing your whole society is dying. You realize that, right? You realize that the West and the Enlightenment and all the traditions that we built, bled for, died for, you realize that your generation is killing them.
I mean, in America, there is politics. There is still Trump, and there is aggression, and there is MAGA, and there are mad Democrats, but it still feels alive. In Britain, we had Starmer, and we now have Burnham, and the captain is not on the deck, is what I would say. The whole ship is just a ghost sailing into the night at this point, and no new solutions have been found or being even engaged with, and everything is just sort of, passing over into history. And there is still a certain fight in the British people, but a few wrong turns and that could all be snuffed out. It feels rather hopeless right now.
It is hopeless. You have no hope. That's why I've argued repeatedly that you should surrender. We could have that conversation. But I mean, you will sooner or later. The question is, are you going to surrender before or after the pogroms of the indigenous people?
Surrender to, who are we surrendering to?
Well, you'd surrender to the Islamists. I mean, you could talk about the logistics of that, but you'd get reduced citizenship status. You'd pay the tax on non-Muslims. Yeah, exactly. And so sooner or later, the Overton window just hasn't shifted on it yet. But you keep it up and you will, I promise you. I can tell you that with unshakable confidence. But I find the whole thing to be tragic, doesn't even begin to describe it. And the amazing thing to me is it's so predictable. That's the other thing. It's so predictable. So, again, I just like to say on this note, if you don't shoot the boats and the people coming over, deal with it, because you're going to get what you deserve.
I don't think the shooting has any part to play.
Great.
I
Then
think
you will get.
I think the revision of the law has a part to play.
You're going to get what you. Great. You do that. You revise the law. That's wonderful. And we'll talk about that. You'll have that conversation, and then there'll be 50 million more unvetted immigrants in your country, creating chaos. It's great. You're going to get what you deserve. I promise you.
Well, I mean, the conversational batting has opened on the question of remigration in Britain.
I'm talking to Martin and Sellner in a few days.
Right, okay. Well, he's kind of the grandfather of this in a way. And again, he is the far side of the cordon sanitaire. He is one of those sort of bogeyman people within the European constellation. As I'm sure you'll find out, he has been banned and debanked.
He was telling me, we went out together. We had to sit in a small place in the middle of nowhere. Everybody's looking over their shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he has some sort of Orwellian banning order on him.
Debanked and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, this is a clarion call. Like this, if nothing else comes from this, I just want to say it is time to be honest. You do not shoot the boats. No, I'm not kidding. I'm actually serious. I'm not telling you to shoot the boats. I personally think you should. But you do not kill the people when they come over. Do not say, oh my God, we never knew this would happen. If you do not shoot the people who come over in the boats or swim, you're going to get the kind of society that you deserve.
We're already getting the kind of society we deserve.
Perfect.
But there is some hope in the hills in that, there are many things you can do before you open up your AK, Peter.
All right, then
I will see you on the barricades with the AK.
Let's make a prediction. Are you going to do those things? Is Western Europe going to do those things?
When the pendulum turns, it will turn hard. Right now there is some Zoomer out there who in 10 to 15 years' time will be the absolute kind of Gauleiter of a new Europe that will be born in the ashes of the old one. Whether they can seize the reins strongly enough, whether they can marshal enough power behind them. But what will happen is that things that are very unfashionable today will suddenly become very fashionable. And, it will be that sense of,
Sharia law.
They hung the Nazis in 1945, and the people who had sort of stayed on the periphery of that felt very glad that they hadn't joined the party. And as we started talking about this with Jason Arday and critical studies, there will come a time where we will sort of have to decide what to do with our cultural enemies. Because the facts will be so overwhelming that the public will ultimately step down on one side of the line. No?
Your cultural enemies are going to decide what they're going to do with you.
Well, maybe they will. Hi, guys. But, we're in a war for sanity. We're in a war for culture. Dare I say the West? That feels a very sort of polemical term. But, we're getting to the point now where civilians are being drawn in from their blissful ignorance, and they are going to have to decide, and we're all going to have to decide. And I guess I've come down one way. 5 or 10 years ago, I didn't really talk about politics. That wasn't really my mode.
And I would say you've already decided, not you, but your civilization has already decided, and I'm sorry for the decision you've made.
Well, Peter, the world is always forming in new and unpleasant ways. That is the change that we must persist through. And I'm very happy to have lived through some of the greatest days of the West.
That's lovely, yeah.
And we will see whether there is a redoubt for the likes of me in the coming decades. Could take many forms.
You could always marry an American woman.
How would that help me?
Well, you could go to America.
Sure, America's bigger, but various, civilizational deconstructions are happening to that propositional nation too.
That's a conversation for another podcast. Okay, is there anything we could have talked about a wide variety of stuff, but is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
About anything in particular?
Yeah, anything on your mind I should have asked you about?
And in terms of another subject, I'm just thinking of from the Arday shit, like the Nathan Cofnas angle, I think is quite interesting because he was kind of defenestrated from Cambridge for talking about race and IQ.
Yeah. Boy, I'd love to have a conversation with you about race and IQ, maybe if we have more time. Is that something you think about?
Let's see, do I still want to be in polite society?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that. Don't fuck with me though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people say no to this, but I ask anyway as a penultimate question. Is there anything you want to ask me about?
Well, I guess I just want the flip side of what you've been saying to me. Like, to what extent do you believe what you were just talking about?
100%.
Right? This isn't a bit of further jujitsu.
No.
Right. And what are you going to do about it, Peter?
Well, that's what I'm doing about it right now. I'm having conversations about it. I'm trying to destroy the engines that perpetuate this madness. I've basically dedicated my life to this. In spite of the people fighting against it.
Okay. And do you think there will be a world worth living in for you in 10 to 15 years if your predictions come true?
I couldn't care less. I'll be dead.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of longevity treatments coming up the pipeline, Peter. I wouldn't be so sure you can crawl off into the happy night of death.
Well, the world is beset by cowardice. No one's talking about it. No one's being honest about it. This is clearly a civilizational threat.
Yeah.
And the cowardice is the fear of speaking openly and honestly about it. It's pitiable. It's disgusting. It's despicable. This disgusts me.
Well, you see it all. There was the Southport riots in the UK. It's about 2 years ago now, actually, almost to the day. And my chief feeling around that was that, okay, the government is literally scared because the whites are kicking off in provincial towns. They genuinely think that this could run out of control. This could be a smoldering fire that is beyond their grasp. And what happens when the whites kick off, the Muslims began kicking off to a certain extent. And, that sense that the government is no longer in charge, no longer runs, it doesn't have the power to execute its will. It essentially just needs to keep a hard lid on this simmering tension that it has invited, that is now baked in, which brings us back to the question of Spanish enclaves, and how, countries deal with what they already have to deal with.
There is
where the measure of force is that allows that to be, elegantly diffused.
Brussels is the case in point. Brussels is a cesspool. When was the last time you were in Brussels?
It was 13 months ago.
Okay, so
it was a very confusing place.
There is no possible way they could engage in remigration. It's just logistically not possible. But we can leave that. We're running up to another interview, but I could obviously talk to you all day about a wide range of things.
Sure.
And as my dear friend Michael Shermer says, never tell anybody you're smart, make predictions. So I've made my predictions to you, and I want you to know unequivocally, I want to be wrong. I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, hope that I'm wrong. I hope that the secular modernity, the hammer blows of secular modernity will cure everything, the capitalist system will cure everything, and everybody's gonna live hunky-dory forever, and all the illegal migrants that are gonna come in, they're gonna assimilate great, and in 50 years, there's gonna be everyone's gonna live in kumbaya, peace and harmony. It's gonna be Shangri-La.
Well, the arc of history is funny like that, isn't it? And predictivity is funny like that. If you had predicted today from 15 years ago, you would have been, and you'd been transported, teleported forward, you would be at once, interestingly baffled by what had happened today, but you would see a very strong and obvious commonality, and you would think, life is pretty much fine. So
great. Then we'll end on that. Where can people find your work?
Where they can find it, I have a small Substack, which is called Back to the Land, and they can hit me up on Twitter.
And your podcast?
Podcast Multipolarity that I produce with Andrew Collingwood and Philip Pilkington. And I'm available on unheard.com and my writings.
And I have to say, love your vocabulary.
Thank you.
Truly love it.
Somewhat otiose of you, Peter, but okay.
Thanks, Gavin.
Cheers.
Excellent.